All right, we're going to be discussing the mechanics from a front view, and we're just going to concern ourselves with our path or the flow down the mound. So we already got these videos to the top of these guys' leg lifts. Obviously, every pitcher comes down the mound at different rates, different speeds. However, to make these guys flow together, I have changed up their speeds to fit. So what we're going to see is that we got Jerry Jones over here getting that front leg fully extended and really sitting into his delivery. We got Greinke, who's got his knee, which is going to be further back towards second base than his foot is. He's really taking this front knee and kind of curling it back so that his front hip stays closed. And Kirby is going like Jones here with his front leg, but he's keeping it in a more bent position rather than kicking it straight out like Jones. But what we do notice is no matter how these guys load into their back hips, getting down into their legs, engaging their lower halves, what do we notice? We notice where the glove is going. And that's to help them be able to see over their front shoulder. They want to be looking down the barrel of their shoulder, because the longer we can be looking here over this shoulder as we proceed down the mound. Obviously, we've gotten back to center, but look, we're still looking right over that shoulder. Still looking right over that shoulder. Still looking right over that front shoulder. The longer we can do that into our moment of foot strike, bam, bam, we can see front shoulder, and our head is still trying to fight to keep that front, or rather our front shoulder is still fighting to stay above our chin. The front shoulder is still fighting to stay in above the chin. The front shoulder is still fighting to stay in above the chin. And when we do that, we can see that the back hip now has been able to come through, exposing the belt buckle to the batter, to our catcher, but preventing, because that front shoulder's fought to stay in so that we continue to look over it. Look what that's done with our chest. It's kept it squared up, squared up, squared up, as that lower half has been able to fire, and there lies our upper lower half separation that we're trying to achieve. And now here comes the most important part. Getting into this position is key for both our power production, our ability to throw the baseball with our body, thus reducing the amount of stress that's going on through our arm during that delivery, and helping ensure, this wasn't the straightest line here, helping ensure our energy continues to flow to the catcher. All right, we can see that head staying there, that head staying there. Kirby's fighting to keep it in there. And you can see he's fighting to keep it in there because it did not go more out there. So we're rotating that back shoulder. We're rotating that back shoulder forward. forward, forward, forward. So that way all of our power can be flung through those fingers, out through that ball, forward. If we watch that again without any interruption, into foot strike, out of foot strike. Everything staying in line with our target. And then noticing as they're getting into release, where are those chin and chests going? To the target. To the target. The angle of our trunk, this mass from our shoulders through our waist, our trunk right now is upright. It's above our hips. In relation to the ground, it's in a 90-degree angle. As we get into release, those trunks in relation to the ground are no longer up here trying to throw the baseball. Instead, in relation to the ground, these trunks of these elite throwers of the baseball, both in terms of command, the best to ever do it, in terms of longevity and success, one of the best to do it, and an upcomer with elite velocity and potential to be an all-star. Every one of their trunks at release went from being up here at foot strike to out here at release, bringing that energy down the mound, but most importantly, towards our target. And that's something that we're able to see even easier and more clearly in the side view videos. All right, so if we kind of take this back once more and we see these arm slots, we'd say, boom. Oops, let me draw a better line than that. Right, we're at a high three-quarter, three-quarter. We are in a same thing, three-quarter, high three-quarter. Same thing here, right? So these are some of your most common arm slots are the three-quarter to high three-quarter arm slot. And then what we'll look at next here are some guys that are in that lower three-quarter tier. So we'll let, we got Luis Hill, Kyle Harrison, and Carl Crawford. Right, so the same thing, moment of that foot strike, we can see that they're still fighting to keep that front shoulder in, keep that front shoulder in, fighting to keep that front shoulder in, and then coming to release and through, we can see how those heads are fighting to stay in. Luis Hill a little bit outside, but we can see through release, bam, it's there, it's there, it's there, it's there. Now it's out, which is no big deal. It's already stable for long enough post-release, bam, that he could do a cartwheel over here if he wanted to after. So fighting to keep that front shoulder in, And by doing that, the shoulders have stayed squared up, and with a good lower half timing and pattern sequencing, we got the back hip to have come forward, the back hip to have come forward, exposing that belt buckle to the batter, creating that upper and lower half separation that we're trying to seek in order to achieve higher velocities and minimize the stress that's put on our arm during these high intense and continuous throws. If we then take these guys into their moment of release, we got that same concept that we did earlier, and we can see here's our low 3/4, even getting closer, some would say, to even true sidearm. We have that low 3/4, and we got that 3/4 to low 3/4. But what we can notice is all the same with those different arm slots, but the most common arm slots in our game, all these guys are fitting the same bill in their own unique ways, but these important key points are all very much getting checked off by each, no matter what. All right, now that we've had the opportunity to review the big league mechanics from that front view, we're now going to pair you guys up with someone that has a similar moving delivery as you, or may have a similar mechanical flaw as you do. And then we're going to use a big leaguer to help us better visually see that issue with the mechanics. All right, so you guys are up here first with Skeens. We're going to get this to pause at the moment of foot strike. And that's, again, just when that front foot gets into the ground. And what we're going to notice is we have a good upright posture. We have a good upright posture. And then we got this right here. And we're wanting to rotate this back shoulder forward, around, whatever body posture we're in. And we can see with this, we're not going to be able to get that energy going to the target as efficiently and with as much power if we're in this type of alignment. So if we watch as we go through rotation and get us to release, we can just see how way out here Skeens is able to get, bam, compared to where you're able to get, right? Gaining ground towards his target as he's throwing. The back shoulder gets to go forward. Your back shoulder is really going up. And it's really going up because your front shoulder and your head and your rib cage is going down. So the angle we set for ourselves at foot strike is going to help us either rotate towards the target or fight to get going to the target. And at that moment of release, we can see how everyone's ball, shoulder, ball, shoulder, ball, shoulder. These are all very, very close to straight lines. right? There's not anyone that's really here or here, right? Because we're trying to extend our hand away from our body. Now, we can tell as Skeens is coming forward that energy is coming forward. We look at Blanchard. He's trying to get that chin to come forward, and it definitely could come a lot more, because if we look, bud, let's notice how as Skeens is coming through, this Pittsburgh logo of his isn't just continuing to come to us, but it's going to come to us, and then it's going to start to go down towards the ground, down towards the front of the pitching mound. Right? It's harder to see the bottom of the letters than it is the top of the letters. If we then shift our focus to you as you're rotating around, that Miami on your chest never really goes down. And that's why it's tougher for your chin to get out in front. So we're not able to release the ball with our chest creating as much power for the throw as possible. And one of the reasons that it's a little bit more difficult for you to do this is if we notice, where is Skeens' glove at this point in time? It's into his armpit, chest, ribcage area. Where's yours? It's out over here. And because of that, we just kind of notice that we can just see like the ripples in your shoulder is showing that we're starting to fly open just a little early. Right? We got that chin looking over the shoulder, and then we got the glove. And then we got your chin looking over your shoulder, and then we got the glove. So pretty soon that shoulder is going to start to want to catch up to that glove, even if the glove starts to come in. If we notice, you guys take very similar paths with your glove. But let's just notice around this point in time here what movement Skeens is going to do with his wrist and where that takes the glove. See how his wrist kind of curls in, and that takes his glove to his forearm / the inside of his elbow bend. And as he's doing that, notice what your wrist is doing. It's kind of opening you up, and your wrist is bending, but instead of bending into your forearm, it's bending out towards first base dugout. And that movement there opens that elbow up a little bit further, which then just opens that front shoulder up a little early. So now it's going to be just a little bit tougher for you to get yourself going forward. So if we can just try to figure out that muscle memory to get that glove to finish tight versus it finishing out over here. It's not taking you out after the fact, which is great, but it's just not staying as tight as it could to help you get further out, right? One thing we're always thinking about is get ourselves to the glove, So if this chest was able to come out more and the glove was able to come in just a little bit more and not pull the glove in more, but tuck the glove in by using your hand and your wrist, tucking that wrist in to get the glove to go in, and then getting your chest to go to that will accomplish both things we're looking for. One of the last things, actually there's two things left. One more thing with the upper body for us to take note is just notice where Skeens' arm is loaded up. It's loaded up behind his head towards second base, yes, but it's also loaded behind his head towards first base dugout. We look at Blanchard over here, and we can barely see that hand, but that's showing us that the hand is loaded up back towards second base and also loaded back towards first base. Now, Blanche, if we want your arm to be more like Skeens, more loaded back, it's going to be easy to achieve that if the front shoulder doesn't start to open up early. Because once the front shoulder goes this way a little bit, the back shoulder's got to come this way a little bit. So if we can keep that front shoulder in longer, that means your back shoulder will stay back longer, and you'll start looking more like Skeens here with that. But then we come over here, bud, And we can notice that not only is our upper body starting to tilt like this very early, but our throwing arm, yes, it's loaded up, obviously, back towards second base, but it's loaded up towards third base. So if you were going to punch someone and you started your fist there versus starting your fist back, obviously you wouldn't have your hand up there, but if this hand was like this, and here's your fist, that's a lot of force coming through, versus your hand being here and connecting to your shoulders there, coming through, not as much, right? So this tilt is definitely not helping this, but we got to think, watch how this arm loads up versus your arm doesn't load up until that foot starts to hit the ground. So your arm is real late doing what we want it to do. And this is going to be something that's a lot easier to be seen in the side view. So we're going to play this one more time, pausing it at foot strike, because now we're going to talk about our one thing with the lower body. Both of your guys' backside legs do very good movements and very good sequencing. Your front legs, and this is one of the main reasons I chose skeins for you guys, is because you guys both have this slight cross your body stride, where it's not a big across the body stride, but it is slight. What we're going to notice is with Blanchard and with skeins, they're able to be firm on this front knee, meaning it just kind of gets straight. It doesn't kind of roll this way as the shoulders rotate this way. But what we're going to notice with your knee over here is that your knee is going to roll this way as your shoulders roll or rotate around this way. So we'll kind of let it go forward a little bit, and we can kind of see that knee right there really rolling over, whereas Blanchard and Skeens is staying in that alignment, and it's just getting firmed up. So now we got to think, why does your knee go like that? Well, if your upper body is already leaning this way, and then when you throw, your upper body continues to go this way, it's going to be probably unrealistic to expect the rest of your lower body not to also want to be influenced by that. So now we got all of this energy with all of the upper body and lower body squirting out towards first base dugout. And now that throwing arm gets sent up this way, all while we're trying to throw the ball in our energy this way. So we really got to think about being upright at foot strike. And after that, everything else will begin to learn and morph itself to flow from that position. But this right here is what's causing a lot of the issues. And then from the side view, we'll be able to diagnose that arm delay much easier. All right, so one last time through for you guys, and then we'll get to the next group. All right, we got you guys here with Mason Miller. We'll have it pause at that moment of foot strike so we can see our body's positioning, so we can more accurately understand the mechanical adjustments we're looking to make. So we can see both of you guys are doing a good job with your lower body, getting that belt buckle, going towards that target. We can see that back hip getting driven forward. We can see the front leg being in a position where we're going to be able to be stable after our rotation of our throw. However, if we look at that upper body that makes the throw with rotation, we only want to start throwing once the foot gets in the ground. Foot gets in the ground, then we throw. Foot down, then throw. And what we see here is Mason Miller has his foot down, and this baseball is loaded up back behind him. We can see his arm back here is loaded up back towards second base, but it's also loaded back behind him towards first base. We can see that it's his chin and his shoulder and his glove, just like we saw with all those other big leaguers moments ago. And we go over here, we can see chin, we can see center of chest, we can see chin. If the glove wasn't where it's at, we would see pretty close to center of chest as well. So that upper, lower half, or shoulder hip separation that we were trying to achieve, Mason Miller has a good job of his hips being this way and his shoulders being this way. Whereas we got all of your guys' hips real good job, just like Mason Miller's. But then we look at your shoulders and we can see the angle that they're in. Right? So now you have less of this back shoulder rotating forward, back shoulder rotating forward, rotating forward. You guys have much less of it than what Mason Miller has. And if we think of just strictly in terms of rotational degree, Mason Miller is going to go from 0 degrees to bop, 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 bop to here, and there's our 90 degrees. And we do something similar over here, and it's harder to visualize because it's a 2D trying to do something that's more three-dimensional, but we're only going to have something like this, and that's a very tight angle. And we got something like this, and it's only going to be able to go again to right here, and now we got a very tight angle versus a big. So if we go through rotation, then we can see from here to your release how much power are you able to create rotationally with your shoulders. It's not a whole lot because you guys have already begun to have those shoulders rotate too early. The front shoulders are getting opened up too early. The back shoulders are coming through too early. Right? So as soon as the front shoulders start to go, the back shoulder is going to start to come. Or as soon as the back shoulder starts to come, the front shoulder is going to finish. So we got to fight one or maybe both of these, keeping the front shoulder in longer and keeping the throwing arm loaded up and back longer. The big thing there is longer. It's timing. Our timing is off. Your upper body is coming through too quickly. We need to slow the upper body's progression down. Every step your upper body does is going too quickly through those movements because getting you to the end movement, end being foot hitting the ground, this end movement is occurring too early in relation to, your foot hitting the ground is when time is on time or off time. Right here is on time, you guys coming through too early. So everything you do with the upper body, we need to last longer or start later. So that way, as we get into release here, we are creating and generating more power with our big body rather than trying to create it all by just our arm. Okay? And I would be willing to bet once we are able to fix that, bud, your arm is not going to be slinging out around you as much as it does. And I'm not saying that having this low arm slot isn't good, but this low arm slot of yours is artificially created because it's a low. If you just kind of look at your shoulders and then we watch this dip here and then your arm is just below your shoulders. If we lifted you up and got you more upright, your arm would be underneath everything. And same thing here a little bit as well, right? We can see that dip low, and it's just because we've come through early and now it's just dragging through, rather than being loaded up on time, and now it can be thrown down, 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 down. Versus you guys are just trying to get it to go forward, forward, forward. Just go forward for me versus down. And that's just because your throwing sequence of the upper body is occurring too early. Also notice one of the reasons I paired you guys up as well is see how low you guys still are with your upper bodies? Mason Miller's going to go low. Boom. But watch, you got to get ourselves back up. And I know that's something that we worked on and talked about last year with you, bud, is getting ourselves back up after we rotate all the way around, get tall. We don't need to be down low like this the whole time. It's not going to help us create whippy power. Whip that arm across your body. Whip those shoulders around. Whip the shoulders, arm comes through, shoulders catch up. Real whippy. So we'll go one more time for you guys to see this from the start. All right, we got you guys up here with a guy you probably don't know. He's a minor leaguer named Daniel Espinal. Very high velocity thrower in the Cleveland Guardians minor league organization. So we're going to start this over again for you guys. We're going to pause it at that moment of foot strike like you just kind of saw. And as you notice, we've already got Daniel through part of his leg lift. It's just because it didn't have good quality of sight up until this point. So I just decided to make sure I got rid of it. So what we're going to notice at this moment of foot strike is like with the big leaguers that we already discussed and that you just learned from, at this moment, we're trying to have our chin looking down our shoulder with our glove finishing into our chest, armpit, ribcage area. So that way our shoulders can separate themselves from the hips. And we can see the back hip has gone forward with that belt buckle exposing itself, just like you guys here are doing a good job of, right? Your lower halves are doing what we want them to do, and they're doing what we want them to do at the time we want them to do it at from this perspective here. But what we can just see is how much this upper body has already begun to throw before it's time to throw. It's not time to throw until his front foot gets into the ground. And we can see both of you guys are wanting to come through, wanting to start coming through. Whether it's wanting to start to come through in good posture or it's wanting to start to come through with a little bit of an angle, both are signs that the upper body is too quick to want to throw. A guy like this is more because the glove side is wanting to finish too early. So if we look right here, chin, shoulder, if this glove could be already be making his way mostly already like 55, 60%, even more than that maybe, of its progression towards finishing, you right here will look just like Daniel does here. But what we can see is as both of your guys' gloves go out, knee, glove, knee, glove, the exact same thing. It's just not the same point in time, right? You guys aren't synced up in that, but at that point in time looks like this point in time and that point in time, right? Which then means this and this is also very close to this and this right? He's got this bend with his front leg, you got that bend with your front leg. But the position of the knee and the glove at those 2 points in time, boom and boom, are the same. But just notice how now as he gets it, that oomph, that load me up, load me up. Look what your elbows are doing. Load it up, load it up, load it up. Your glove is going that way during that, whereas Daniel's is getting this during the load up. Notice how he's maybe what you would call tucking or finishing the glove is not pulling it into the body. It's this movement with the wrist and the hand. Finishing the glove to the forearm. Taking your glove to the inside part of your elbow. Right? When he does that, it finishes the glove where we need to. Because when your glove does that movement with the wrist, it's taking your glove this way. Instead of it going into your inside elbow, it's going to the outside part of your elbow. And when it does that, now everything has the opportunity to continue to go this way instead of it going back into it himself. And that's why your front shoulder opens early, which then pulls your back shoulder through, and that puts you in this angle. So now you're going to have energy that wants to continue to go in this direction as you go to throw, which now instead of the back shoulder getting to come forward, the back shoulder is going to get sent up this way because energy is going down this way. See that there? Whereas this glove finishes here, and now he gets to come out in front. Out in front. Back shoulder goes forward. Back shoulder goes forward. You're just fighting to go forward. And what is it fighting? It's fighting against the rest of the upper body wanting to continue to go this way. While your shoulder tries to rotate this way, it's getting launched this way. So it's fighting against this energy, which was caused by this energy. So in order for our throw energy to be more in sync that way, we got to keep this head upright more. In order to keep the head upright more, we got to make sure that this front shoulder doesn't open up early. In order to make sure the front shoulder doesn't open up early, we got to make sure we're finishing our glove and not finishing the glove after we've already thrown the ball. Yeah, you may look the part, but it's too late. It's too late. It's artificial. It's just doing it so that I don't or someone else doesn't say finish your glove, right? So the damage is done right here because the glove is not finishing. We go over here now, and we can see that your glove, if you had one on, obviously we know you can't because of that cast, but we can see how because you're not doing that swivel either, it's allowing that front shoulder to keep going out. All right? Even though the hand is in a good spot right now, it didn't swivel in enough, and who knows, maybe you put that glove on and your hand does it. Who knows, because you can't bend the wrist, your hand can't do it as well, right? So I'm not going to put a whole lot of stock into it just because it doesn't appear as if this is really getting ripped forward a lot. It just seems like maybe you're out of sync because you can't do the things you normally would do with that wrist. Either way, though, we can see that the back shoulder eventually, it's not getting pulled like we said, but it is starting to come through early, right? That back shoulder is starting to come forward. It's not getting slung out to the side like we talked about over here. It is starting to come forward, but it's just coming forward early. So now you're going to punch someone from here. Obviously, your hand wouldn't be up here. It would be, even with this. So you're either punching with your fist here right now, or you're punching with your fist back here. Right? We all know that going to knock someone out with this, and this one over here you're going to just make contact with. So we got to keep these shoulders back as your lower body fires forward. Take that back so you guys can see it again. And just notice how the glove arm is going to be a big indication of how we can keep that front shoulder closed at foot strike versus that front shoulder getting opened, and then where that then gets us at release. And we can see that the head is doing a good job of trying to continue to go forward, go forward, go forward. It's going to be able to do that even more when this gets in a little bit. But again, like I said, I'm not putting too much stock into it because look where this is at right now. It's high and tight like it should be. So I bet when we don't have this cast on, that wrist is able to do that swivel like we discussed over here. And like we'll see again, I'll just show it again for you. Boom, boom. Looking at Daniel there, that right there, that right there, that right there. I bet your body wants to do it, but with your cast on, you just can't do it. That'll help keep things tighter. But again, this is still coming through a little bit early, but that is going to help that out, which will help this get here out in front more as well. But all in all, pretty darn good over here. Good. Something that both of you guys are doing a good job of, though, is firming up on this front leg. So that way the back hip can continue to come around and through. So that way it can catch up with the angle that the shoulders are in. All right. Landing here is just as much coming through those hips as it is here. One just takes longer to do it. But we can see that this angle of your foot and this angle of his foot is the same. So that and that are very similar right now. It's just yours takes a little bit more time. But you guys are doing a good job of finishing that through, which means if we can start to get these shoulders to be more here when that foot hits the ground, like Daniel's is here, we're going to be able to support it on our firm front leg. So we got tons of extra power just waiting to be unlocked if we can move our bodies with good rhythm and good timing. The big thing there is timing. Timing of your upper half, waiting and not coming through so early. Whether that's utilizing our gloves finish to keep our front shoulder in longer, or just delaying our upper body's movements so that way they occur later on than they already do. All right, we got you guys paired up here with Sonny Gray. He's been doing it, or did it for a very long time at a very high level. So we got it paused at foot strike here. And what we're going to notice is a couple things here. One, we have the shoulders closed like we see not just with Sonny here, but what we learned with the big league front video just moments ago. And when we have that, like we said, we're going to be able to rotate our shoulders all the way, start to finish, with the throw. Where when other guys start to open this front shoulder early and get the front shoulder to come through early, they're now rotating their shoulders with less power than they could be. So you guys, from this front view, the upper halves are in a position where we're going to be able to produce good amounts of power. What we're going to notice in the lower half is that belt buckle we're looking to have go towards our target. And what we can see over here is this front leg just has not rotated itself. Right? Here's that same position that you landed in. Here's the same position that you're currently in. And what we're going to notice is as Sonny Gray gets into his stride, notice how that leg now is rotated. Whereas yours goes from here and just stays here. So now when you go to throw, this cannot stay. It's going to have to get more over here. Boom. So now you have your entire lower body swinging and swaying energy this way while you're trying to rotate this way. And those are not in agreement with one another. So you're going to minimize the amount of power you're actually producing with this throw. So we got to get this front leg to rotate. We got to learn this pattern here of rotating that front leg, rotating that front leg, rotating that front leg, rotating that front leg. I believe, if I'm not mistaken, this was a drill that we did with some of the guys, if not the entire team at some point last year, is learning how to get this front leg to rotate towards the target. So we're going to want to revisit those drills there. Because if we look at your backside wants to do some things, and we're going to notice, we'll talk about it a little bit here, but it's going to be easier to see from the side view. And both of you guys are paired up for this reason. Is if you guys watch, heels, I have to go back a little bit further. We're going to watch over here about how your heel just very early and continuously just kind of lifts up off of the ground. You're just going up onto the balls of your toes on that back foot. So when that happens, you're just spinning your back foot in place. You're not able to drive your body forward with energy. So what we're going to want to look at is the back foot rotation drills. That'll teach you how to get that back foot rotating the way we want to. We look at this over here, and it's a very similar movement that we're seeing of that heel just coming up off of the ground and getting onto the balls of your toes, right? And when that occurs, like we just said, we're not able to really drive this back hip forward with power. So what we're going to look at next over here is, because that back foot just kind of lifted up onto the heel, and what we can do is we kind of look at Sonny Gray here. It's maybe not the greatest because it's green screened out, but we kind of watch and notice how as that heel does come up off the ground, it's going forward. It's going forward. And this will be something that's easier to see, like I said, from the side view breakdown that'll be coming next. But because, Bud, your heel is coming up off the ground straight up and not going forward, once this foot does hit the ground, your upper body is going to be in a position, again, this will be easier seen from the side, where the throwing arm isn't going to be in that 90-90 bend. And instead, it's going to be in a, from your shoulder to your elbow to the ball, we're looking for that 90-90. What we're going to notice is from your shoulder to your elbow to the ball is down. And the reason I believe it's down is because the pattern of this back foot firing forward, driving the back hip and back knee forward, is what loads the arm up. So if you watch, this hand is going to get loaded up when this back foot goes forward. Boom. 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 And because it's hard for your back foot to go forward because your heel is directly above the toe, it's hard to now get that going forward. Your elbow gets caught down low. And we can kind of see where it is right here. And we go forward in time, and we can kind of notice how it's staying in this plane down here. Whereas Sonny Gray's elbow is way up here. So again, this is going to be easier to see from the side view, but we need to set that up to explain why we're going to see what we're going to see next. And that is your upper body having this little tilt here, because it knows I'm going to have to kind of sling my body this way to get my low loaded arm not just around, but up enough to then come down, because it's already low, and your body knows that it's got to throw the ball down. It's hard to throw something down that's already low. So watch what the body's going to do. It's going to have this set angle because it's going to want to start to go even more in this angle in order to make this ball, or my arm, get in a position. We kind of see how his elbow is really coming to a high position, just like Sonny Gray's ball is coming to a very high position. But Sony's body is going forward a lot more, out in front a lot more, right? This Oakland logo is going on a downward angle. Your Recruit logo is straight forward and also on a tilt angle. So a lot of your body's energy is going this way as we're trying to rotate the throat this way. And because we have so much of your upper body going this way, that sends your arm more up this way, which makes it harder to release it out in front. Where we can see Sonny Gray is really able to get going out in front with his throw for a longer period of time than you are. And all of this is going to be a lot, like I said, a lot easier to be seen from the side view, but this helps kind of give a visual that the side view won't offer, and that's how much of this tilt is occurring. All right, we kind of come over here, and we can see, yeah, there's some tilt occurring, but it's as he's going forward, as he's gaining ground towards the target. And what's something we can really see with you guys is this underside of your foot. This underside of your foot really gets dragged on the ground there as you're trying to now rotate. Now you're really trying to rotate the backside, rotate the backside, rotate the backside. And like I said, it's tough to rotate the backside when you're on your tippy toes. It's going to take a lot more time to occur. And more time is not our friend in the pitching sequence. So we can kind of see how all these things kind of loop back together, signs and symptoms going hand in hand. Something you guys both do well, though, is after the shoulders come through is getting things to stack back up. We do that real well, but what we can see is just how much we have this going this way, whereas we got going towards the target here this way. And again, a lot of that for you, Bud, is going to be more easily seen from our side view. But we'll let you guys see this one more time. Watch those back heels, how they kind of just lift off the ground. And then just kind of spin in place. Then we notice how we haven't rotated that lower body. And then trying to get things out in front with a vertical head. All right, so what we're going to be discussing here is the body's position that we get to the moment our front foot gets into the ground for the very first time. And this moment in time is called our foot strike. So we are going to be talking about the moment when, boom, those feet get into the ground for the very first time. And again, that's called our foot strike position. At foot strike, we want to be looking at our body in two halves. Our upper half and our lower half. At foot strike, we want our lower half to have rotated forward towards our target. And a useful thing to look at to know if we've been able to do that is the belt buckle. And is that belt buckle facing the target? If the belt buckle is facing the target, it's a pretty good chance that we have successfully rotated both the back foot, the back knee, and the back hip. When we're able to rotate the back foot, the back knee, and the back hip, as our front foot is getting into that foot strike position, we will successfully be able to get our belt buckle driving towards the target. if we specifically take a look at just the back foot of these four guys, let's watch as they are rotating that back leg, how that back foot is rotating. At this point in time, all four guys still have their entire foot flat onto the ground, and then they begin to rotate through or over top of their big toe. Their foot kind of rolls, folds over, or drives forward. And as the foot does that motion, we now shift our view to the back knee and know as the foot is rolling over the big toe, that the back knee is also rotating forward. And how those two things, the back foot and the back knee, are working together. We can also see that as we go to drive and rotate that back foot and back knee, how they do that while they gain ground down the mound and towards their catcher. So this is the difference between rotating our bodies forward, or a word for that is driving ourselves forward, versus just rotating in place. If we were just rotating in place, our bodies would not be able to gain this ground down the mound. Our bodies wouldn't be able to accelerate our power and energy down the mound. And we can then look and see that the foot has the toe, and then the heel is in front of the toe, meaning we have rotated forward. We then go to the upper body, the upper halves, from the waist up, and we want to separate that upper body from the lower body. We want the direction that our hips are facing, which is to the target, to be separate from the direction our shoulders are facing. So we notice, we can see the Giants, the Pirates, and his number. We can see the Phillies, and we can see the Brewers or Milwaukee. I'm not sure what they have displayed on their jerseys there. So the direction of their lower bodies is to the target, and the direction of their shoulders is still facing, for these right-handers, towards third base, or the direction they have been the entire time. So we rotate the lower body first, then we get into foot strike, then we rotate our upper body second. And the more that we can get those lower bodies to fully rotate to the target by the time that front foot hits the ground, and we've also been able to keep that upper body from rotating and staying back, we will have created as much upper lower half separation or hip shoulder separation as possible. And the more hip shoulder separation or upper lower half separation we can create, the more power we're going to be able to produce, and the amount of stress that's put on our arm is going to be reduced. What we're also going to notice is that almost regardless of your arm slot, if we have a true 3/4, low 3/4, high 3/4, an over-the-top arm slot, or anything in between those, we're always going to find ourselves in a relatively 90 degree angle, meaning from our elbow across to our other shoulder, we want to think is nice and even. 90 degrees in that armpit. We also want to think 90 degrees in that elbow. We want this type of arm position this type of arm position, that 90-90, we'll call it, at the moment of foot strike. When our arm has loaded up to this position here at the moment of foot strike, and the upper body has not rotated yet, our body's rotation will accelerate the throw forward. If the arm is not in this 90-90 position, the body's rotation forward is going to be less than ideal and in sync with how the arm will flow after the body goes. So we're looking for this 90-90-ish position in that throwing arm at foot strike. What we can also notice at foot strike is, where is this glove at? It's in front of the body by the rib cage. We're not letting it, if we're thinking, here's some water, don't drown the glove. Don't let your glove get wet. Don't drown that glove. This one right here is a little too high. Should be more towards the belt. Okay. When the glove gets finished into the body like this, it's able to help keep this front shoulder in line, meaning it's not going to open up early. Because if that front shoulder starts to open up early, that's going to start to pull the back shoulder forward early. And now we would not have separated our upper and lower halves as much, because the angle of the shoulders would begin to rotate forward, which would be more matching the angle of the hips. The final thing we're going to look at is this front leg. We see all these guys have different degrees of bend in their front legs. But what we're going to notice is that as the upper body now rotates to throw, we need to make our front leg become a firm fixture of which we can rotate around. So thinking about this front leg here turning into a flagpole. My flagpole is always going to be strongest if it's straight. Or at least I can't have my flagpole move forward while my body is trying to rotate forward. So we'll redraw these little outlines here, and we will have these guys, oh man, that's all right, it's going to get back to it anyway, boom. And now we'll watch as they go to throw. How that leg is locking out, stiffening up, straightening out. So that now that leg is here, now that leg is here, now that leg is here and here. From the bend, straightening it out. And what we can notice is as that leg locks out, stiffens up, straightens out, becomes that firm flagpole, notice how that upper body is able to catapult itself out in front and down more. Able to get out in front more. Out in front more. So that way, if we look, we can't get everyone exactly at release, but ball just out, ball just out, ball is coming out, ball is slightly a little bit more out than the bottom two. But we're able to look at this angle of the chin to the waist, back out to the front foot, boom, boom, boom. Just how out in front of themselves they're getting. And that's because of that front leg's ability to lock out. So we can see that they're starting, boom, boom, there, and there. So now it's not just the arm throwing the ball down, it's the body throwing the ball down. It's the body going down with the throw. body accelerating down. And as the body's accelerating down, the lower half is firming up. So that way, as I need to finish all this violent rotation, I have the ability to do that around that firm front leg. I have that ability to rotate around. I can finish all that violent rotation from my back leg around. I can finish all that violent rotation from my hips around. I can finish all that violent rotation out of my back shoulder around, giving my arm plenty of time to slow down and giving the back muscles, my scapular muscles, all the time they need to activate and slow down that rapidly accelerating arm. All right, now that you guys have had the opportunity to restudy the big league delivery from the side view with those 4 examples, we now have you guys paired up with a partner again, and we'll have a big leaguer accompanying you. The first time it plays through, it'll focus on the lower half, and the second time it plays through, the videos will get shifted so that way we can focus on the upper half of the delivery. All right, here you go with you guys here. We got you with Garrett Cole. First time we watch it, we'll be focusing on the lower half delivery. We'll get it paused at that moment of foot strike. So that way we can kind of talk about the same things we did from the front view with you guys. So here we are. We're seeing that, like we talked about with you guys' back sides, back legs and front legs doing very good movements when we broke you down from the front view. Right, we can see how the knees are rotating forward, how the back feet are rotating us forward, and we can see how then our belt buckles are able to also go forward. What we can do is we can do that same thing like we saw with the big leaguers and have our stability and strength of our front legs tested here and see how much do they give or bend, or do they lock out and stay firm. And what we can see is it stays firm, it gets firm, it gets firm. So you guys are doing a very good job with that lead leg staying firm so that way we can rotate around that front side. We'll then play that again and focus on the upper half now here. And what we'll do is we'll pause it again at that moment of foot strike so we can take a look at the upper half. Like we discussed in the quad box of the big leaguers, is that we're looking for that 90-90 in that throwing arm, right? That 90 degrees in the elbow bend and then 90 degrees in the armpit bend. We want that ball loaded up back towards second base, obviously, but we're also, like we talked about in the front view, trying to load it up behind our back. So for the righties, that's towards first base. And what we're going to notice is as he's getting into foot strike, the arm is loading up, but the shoulder and the back elbow are not coming through yet. All right, we see how it's loaded back behind him. And what we're going to look at Blanchard is Blanchard, your back elbow, your back shoulder begin to come through forward before that front foot gets into the ground. And like we said before, that front shoulder of yours is starting to open just a little early, and that would explain why the back shoulder starts to want to come through a little early. So we want to think about loading this arm up and back and then throwing it through. You're doing all of that good. You're good up through here, right? Looking just like Garrett Cole. And then it's just that elbow starts to come forward when Garrett Cole is able to keep that elbow still back behind him. So a stronger back with scap pinches and scap holds and getting all of those back muscles stronger is going to help you be able to keep that arm back longer when instead it wants to rotate forward, but having the strength to keep it pulled back. We'll notice a kind of similar but a little looking visually different over here, and that's as your hand is trying to get its way up, it hasn't quite gotten all the way up yet by the time your front foot hits the ground. So you can see your hand's coming up, it's coming up, it's coming up, foot's in the ground now, and what we're going to notice is as you go to throw, that hand is still going to want to be trying to go up. And that's what causes that elbow then to want to go up a little bit, I'm thinking, right? I'm trying to figure out why there's such a high reach when I think you could be a lot whippier if we were a little bit tighter. And I am wondering if this arm, again, could just get loaded up on time. Blanchard's is coming through too early. Yours is loading up too late. So if you guys could find a halfway point between you guys, it would be pretty sweet. But then what we'll do is we'll go ahead and allow this to play through, and we'll pause it at that moment of release. And what we can see is just how far out in front we are able to get compared to where we were at foot strike. All right, so using this amount of power with your throw, using this amount of power to make your throw, or using this amount of power for your throw. So Blanchard, that's what we're talking about, just getting out in front more, getting that logo of your chest down more. Both of you guys can do that a lot better, and that's going to help you create a lot more power. But again, that good firm leg of your guys' allows everything to be able to rotate well through release, which is going to help keep the arm flowing smoothly through release. So these are just little ticky-tack things that are going to help you throw harder, throw more strikes, and keep stress off that arm. And those three things just happen to be things that, as a pitcher, we're looking to maximize every little bit that we can. But all in all, pretty darn good for you guys. All right, we got you guys here with Emmanuel Clase, the Cleveland Guardians closer. Main reason I got him for you guys is because both of you guys have this like closed off front leg approach, and that's very similar to Class A. So that's the main reason that I chose him for you guys, if you were wondering why. So we're going to pause it at that moment of foot strike. That way we can compare the mechanics to the big league side view that we just learned, and then be able to compare that also to the front view stuff that we earlier discussed. So we can see that your guys' lower bodies are doing the things that we want them to do. Back knee, back foot, back hip, driving to the target. That front leg getting rotated and underneath ourselves. Right? Just like we're seeing here with Class A. Right? So you guys' lower bodies are moving similarly, yet uniquely to your own selves, but we're all getting to the spots that we want to get to. What we're going to notice when we go to the top half here, excuse me, we'll do it the same way, where we'll pause it at that moment of contact with that front foot in the ground, otherwise known as foot strike. Okay, we can see, like we discussed in the front view, how both of your guys' shoulders are opening up early, right? We've almost completely lost sight of the Nike logo on your shirt because that front shoulder is open so much towards that target. We can see that it's not as drastic, but it still is occurring over here on this particular pitch. And like we saw in the front view pitch as well, that front shoulder wanting to open early. here we can see that entire Cleveland Guardians logo still, with Class A's arm not just loaded up, but loaded back behind him. Your front shoulder is already coming in front of you, and over here, this back shoulder is already also coming through. And what we're going to notice is that Class A's hand is loaded above his elbow before he starts to throw. Over here, your hand only loads up above your elbow because your elbow rotates in front of the hand. Your elbow is catching up to where the hand is. So your hand gets above your elbow as you're throwing. Any shoulder rotation, shoulder rotation, shoulder rotation, shoulder rotation for you. That is a throw. That's beginning of the throw. We don't want to throw until this arm gets above the elbow. Your arm just now got above the elbow, but we've already started the throw. All right, we can see over here, your hand is in this 90-90, fantastic, but we have to maintain it here. We got to find a way to hold this position. Hold this position. Hold. Versus yours gets there and then it just gets out of there. So that shows you that difference of keeping that front shoulder closed versus it opening up, being able to see it from this side view now, like you saw it from that front view. Now we pause it at that moment of release, and obviously there's that baseball blurring right there for Class A. So we got through release, through release, through release, right? And then we go back to foot strike, boom, boom, and boom. And that's how much you're using your upper body. That's how much you're using your body. That's how much he's using his upper body to create power, not just in front, but down this mound, down in the zone. All of that accelerating the throw down and then continuing to take it down, right? We're going almost equal amounts down after the throw as you did with the throw. We can see here a lot more down to make the throw than it takes to slow the throw down, right? And same thing here. Almost as much down to make the throw as you finish the throw with. So that just goes to show that you guys can get more out here with the throw and still be able to finish the same way you are with your chest down as much as it is now. Okay. One thing I did forget to mention, and we did talk about this from the front view for you guys, and I want to talk about this from the side view first, or the bottom half view first, is the firmness, or this, geez, oh Pete, my trackpad's off. The firmness of this front leg. And that's noticing that as we go to throw, that leg's either got to, like we saw in the big league quad box earlier, that front leg's either got to firm out or stay where it's at, right? It firms up here versus this knee going forward here. Right? And once that knee of yours starts to go and you come off of your heel here, because all that weight's going forward, we're not able to rotate as aggressively anymore. And that's ultimately what we're doing when we throw. We got to rotate that bad boy around. And if this gives forward, we go forward. And that's why you're in this such heavy falling forward position after the throw, is because of this knee not being firmed up with the throw. Right? It doesn't have to go completely straight like Class A's is getting, but we got to make sure that it does not give and keep going forward. I want to see that wall, and try to keep that knee from going in front of that wall. Or as we do that with you. We do that with Class A. All right. So then we come to the front view here, and notice after you get out in front, how we go down, and then watch how we stack back up. All right. That's the stacking back up we talked about from that front view. It's just getting that chest to come back up rather than staying down low like there. Help you whip that thing around some more. So keeping that front shoulder in, keeping that back arm loaded up and back before we throw is going to be a huge part of your guys' development here. All right, we got you guys up here with Sandy Alcantara, so that way you guys can have a better understanding from the big league examples that you just got done studying and reviewing. Like we're going to see here, we can see that the backside leg for you guys is trying to do everything that we want it to do. And it's trying to accomplish it at the time that we're trying to do it at. We can see how that front leg is getting into a position that's ready for us to throw. But the one thing I do want you guys to notice, and this is one of the reasons I paired you guys up, is just notice how you guys both appear to be kind of leaping or lunging from your back foot to your front foot. There's almost like a split moment in time where you're kind of in the air. You're kind of jumping from one foot to the other. Whereas Sandy Alcantara is rotating, where you guys are kind of leaping, jumping away from the pitching rubber. All right? It's not about how hard you can push away from the pitching rubber. It's about how aggressively you can rotate off of the rubber. Okay? So what we're going to see is now, could this be the reason that if you guys are jumping and leaping with your lower body, could that explain why your front shoulders are wanting to open up early? Maybe. It could be. But what we're going to notice is as we continue this video along, oh, come on. As we continue this video along and we get to the upper half, we're going to notice that the difference in that front shoulder staying in with Sandy versus your guys' front shoulders opening up is very easily identified, right? We can see this 90-90 like we talked about in the big league videos, and we can see how that chin is looking over that shoulder, that glove is finishing into the body, right? We can see how this glove is just out over this way like we talked about. You have your 90-90, but you already are coming through. You're already coming through, right? We're kind of wide here. We're kind of big here. We're kind of a little draggy here, but again, could that be because we're just out of sync because we don't have a glove on? Potentially. I'd like to see if next time you throw, if you can't just slide something on there that maybe helps get things a little bit more under control. But again, like I said, I think that's because your wrist is just immobile. Once your wrist can flex, hopefully things clean up. So it's not the easiest to give you the best diagnosis because one little thing has such a big impact on everything else. But the wrist definitely does not have any impact on the jumping of the lower body. So let's just continue on with that upper body and just notice how he's able to keep that glove side in, versus your guys' glove side shoulders opening. And now you're left with half or even less than half of your shoulder's abilities to rotate to make the throw with, leading you to not be able to get out in front. Look at that head way over there. Leading you to not be able to get anywhere with that throw, really, compared to where you were at that moment of foot strike, right? You're only going down that little bit. You're only going really forward that little bit versus all of this downward force with his entire upper body to send that ball not just in front of him, but down the mound, down in the zone. And we can just see the difference in that energy of after the throw, how much his body just continues to go wham, down and up, versus your guys' body is kind of just going forward, 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 forward. Right? Head, head, head. Head's down. Your head's pretty much still there. Your head's definitely still there. And then the head comes up. Your head's still here. Your head's still here. Now you're starting to come up. And now you're up. Right? So it just goes to show, like, if that front shoulder stays in, we can rotate down. If that front shoulder opens early, we can just rotate out. And now you're just reaching to make that throw instead of driving down to make that throw. That's the big benefit of keeping that front shoulder in. All right, so we got you guys here with Corbin Burns. Like we discussed just moments ago, we'll focus on the lower half here, pausing it at foot strike. Okay, and for you guys, we both talked in that front view about that back heel of yours just coming up off the ground and then spinning, 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 spinning. And now if we watch Corbin Burns, that heel stays in the ground, the heel stays in the ground, the heel's still in the ground, and now it's rotating forward. He gets to rotate his heel forward. He gets to rotate his foot forward. And as he does that, the back knee and back hip get to really complete itself through rotation. We can see with you guys that back foot is just heel up, and now you're just on your tippy toes at this point in time, and we haven't been able to drive anything out. We're not able to create very much power with this lower body at all. Even though it may look like the back knees are really, really rotated, it may give the illusion that the back hip has been able to drive itself forward, but the power that you're creating through those movements is not there. You're getting to positions that we want to get to, but how we're getting to those positions are not efficient or powerful. So this is what that back heel coming up off the ground early looks like compared to that back foot staying in the ground. So we look at Corbin Burns, it's rotating it forward because the heel stays down for long. Right? Versus you guys, heels up, heels up, heels up, heels up. Now I'm trying to rotate. Now I'm trying to rotate. Now I'm trying to rotate. And it's very tough. And because of that, look where your guys' arms are at. We don't have our 90-90s. And when we don't have our 90-90s, when our shoulders rotate, our arm cannot rotate smoothly or efficiently with the body. And therefore, in order to get to the position it will need to get to at release to make accurate throws, we will have to do things out of the ordinary, and that's when stress gets put on the arm, and that's when injuries begin to become easier to have, or sore arms become more frequent, and more frequent sore arms lead to injuries. So having this backside leg fire in the appropriate way, like I said, is going to help load things up for you guys, because there's a synchronization between the back foot and back knee and back hip driving and the arm loading up. And because you don't start that drive forward on the backside until so late, the arm can't get going up when it needs to, so it can't get as high as it needs to by the time it needs to. We'll be able to see these upper body differences easier once we get to the top view here, the upper half. Okay, so we can see this 90, 90 in the throwing arm at the moment of foot strike compared to the angles that you guys are getting into here. Right? So now as Corbin Burns comes on through to throw, we're going to notice how out in front he is at release, right? And we had to get him in between frames because the video's not fast enough to catch it. The ball's coming out in between these two frames here. So we get him through his head, through the head, through, oops, that's not a good line. Through the head, through the head, through the head, back to that moment of foot strike, and we can see this is how much we're powering down that throw with the chest, or how little we're powering down that throw with the chest. And not only is this powering the throw for velocity, but it's helping us get our release out in front, enough out in front so that the ball wants to travel down with aggressiveness. So we then pause you guys at at the moment of release, and we can just see how this baseball is already out of that fingers, and the fingers are barely in line with your knee. The ball is out, and we can see here we're over that front foot, a lot more out in front through release than we are here. And then, again, if we had a better, higher frame rate for Corbin Burns, he's somewhere in between here and here with his. And let's just say his ball is being released somewhere here. We draw that line down, and I bet it's probably somewhere like that. Right? Just that little bit more out in front. So we can see how a back leg not operating the way we want it to leads to the throwing arm not being where we want it to, which then minimizes the ability for us to get out in front during release like we want to, which is going to minimize our power and our accuracy like we want it to be. One final thing that was not mentioned from the front view because I wanted to save it for now, and I think this is something we worked on, and I believe we did a lot last year, we tried to work on, is getting this glove to gain ground. And I believe that was one of your mechanical cues, in fact, was get the glove to gain ground and get the throwing arm to load up. I think those may have been the exact two mechanical cues that you had. What we're going to notice is Corbin Burns, one of the reasons I chose him was because of his more compact arm with the glove side, right? His isn't going to reach out that far, but notice how it does gain ground. It gains ground. Boom, boom. Versus your glove very quickly goes, I'm going to finish. Your glove's already swirled in finishing. And we haven't even begun to load anything up with our upper body. So now you got to just somehow hold this glove into your body. And what you're going to notice is it can't hold it anymore. And in fact, it's going to get away from the body at the point that we want it to be coming into the body. Right? So the point in time that we want it to be getting into the body, yours is going away from the body. And I think it's just because it's been up against the body for so darn long. So we got to get back to those hand separation drills that we worked so hard and so frequently with last year, to get this body to understand that we got to create some length in your hand separation here. We got to get that glove out some more so we can get some rhythm, because if this is tight, this doesn't want to load up maybe. And we can see it's just elbow dipping down. We're going to be putting this in the front of the shoulder, front of that elbow, and just tremendous stress positions as you try to make each and every one of your throws now. So definitely want to revisit all those drills that we worked on last year to get that glove working the way we want it to again.